breaking down my 5-step melody framework part 1. Writing chords. Since I make trap music, I typically want my melodies to be on the more repetitive side, so normally when I make chord progressions I only use 2 to 4 chords. Here I have 2 chords. I'm in F minor. I have a 4-1 chord progression. In trap you typically want a more melancholic feeling, so I try to keep my progressions in a downward motion, hence 4-1 versus 1-4. Voicing your chords. Instead of simple chords, you want to change the position of the notes in your chords for a fuller effect. It's really trial and error and whatever you're feeling for the melody. You might add notes or even take some out. The last thing is chopping up the chords. I'm not going to go too deep into this. I'll explain more in part 3 when I am explaining how to write a top line melody. Breaking down my 5-step melody framework part 2. Bass notes. This is really simple. It really helps out when adding 808 or bass. Typically the lowest notes in your chords will be the bass notes, and I'll show you an example. So here we have our chord progression. So we're in F minor, and here's how the 808 sounds if we follow the root note of the scale. It won't sound bad, but here's how it sounds if we follow the root notes of the chords. Like I said, bass notes are really simple. It really just helps out when you're writing your 808s. Breaking down my 5-step melody framework part 3. Top line melody. The most important things here I believe are rhythm, simplicity, and making sure that it loops well. In part 1 I chopped the chords, so here they are. The reason why chopping the chords helps is because it gives you a basic rhythm to start with. Step 2 is to raise the chopped notes up an octave. It's not mandatory, but it will help separate the chords from the melody. Step 3 is to add transition notes. Super simple, you only need a few notes. Now a quick note for counter melodies. Number 1, you normally want it on a different octave, and you almost always want a different rhythm. Breaking down my 5-step melody framework part 4. Layering. Layering helps you make your melodies fuller and sound more complex. It is optional depending on the melody. Sometimes a melody will sound good without any layering and you can move straight onto effects. So here's our melody. The first thing I layered is the chords. I layered it with a pad. Next, I layered the top line with a bell. I decided not to layer the counter melody. You can layer each part as many times as you like, or as I said in the beginning, you don't even have to layer. Breaking down my 5-step melody framework part 5. Adding effects. I break effects into 2 parts, the pre-effects and the post-effects. The pre-effects are simple: compression, flanger, EQ, reverb, all the simple ones. And the post effects are going to be like gross beat, halftime, reverse, a low pass filter, all the ones that will really change the sound of the melody. When I say pre-effects, I mean everything that I add before I render it. So here, all I added was some fruity flangus and some EQ. So I rendered it and added the post effects. The only things that I really did here was reverse the sample and added some EQ. The pre-effects are normally pretty simple. With the post effects, you need to be patient and you need to try different effects. So on this melody, I tried halftime and it sounded really bad. And then I tried rendering each part of the melody separately and then adding different effects, and ultimately I decided that rendering it all as one and reversing it sounded the best. So like I said, when adding the post effects, be patient and try different things. I added some really basic drums so you can get the idea of how it's going to sound when you start putting the full beat together. Breaking down my 5-step melody framework part 6. Why do I use a 5-step framework when making my melodies? To help me stay organized so I'm not all over the place, because the artistic process is a really messy process. Also, it helps me progress and it lets me know when the melody is just about done. How did I come up with the 5-step framework? I've been working with a sales expert for a while now, and one of the first things that he told me was to teach frameworks. Now, this goes beyond melodies. You can teach frameworks for working out, making money, eating healthy. You can teach a framework for just about anything. So when he told me that, I thought, how do I make my melodies? Then I broke it down into 5 steps and began teaching it. So that's a wrap on my 7-part series breaking down my 5-step melody framework. Thanks for watching, and one more thing. If you want 100 new loops every single month and over 1,000 MIDI files, comment loop and I'll DM you a link.